I was quite controlling at the beginning. I didn't even realize I was disempowering a lot of my team in the early stages because I had this mindset, it'll just be faster if I do it. I think often when you're in the initial stages, you can take for granted how much you can actually learn by just listening to your team.
G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Trewin. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Adriana Brusi from Crowds Now, based in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. Thanks for your time today, Adriana.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Troy.
Let's start with how we know each other. You emailed me a few weeks ago now, and looking at your background, you've got many different businesses and a storied journey, which I think the audience is really going to get a lot out of today.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I think your podcast is fantastic, and I was keen to see how and if I could be involved in part of it. So, yeah, grateful for the opportunity.
Well, based on our chat before we hit record, there's definitely plenty of lessons you're going to share with the audience. So start with tell our audience a bit about your current business, Crowds Now, what it does and how it makes money.
Sure. So, Crowds Now is essentially facilitating everyday people to earn an income without needing an additional skill set and really to become brand ambassadors for businesses. I think we're in an arena at the moment that is, heavily focused on using a lot of influencers, and we're really trying to disrupt the influencer market. Influencers are not necessarily the brand avatar for any business, and it really helps to allow everyday people who already know what they like. They're already the buying avatar of a particular entity, whether that's your local fish and chip shop or a hair salon or whatever that is that they like. It is allowing them to match up with the brands that they already love and become their brand ambassador. So you can get paid to become a restaurant reviewer, for any kind of retail brand, whether it's Nike, it doesn't actually matter what it is, but you're earning an additional income while elevating and amplifying brands in your local community.
Right. So it's a platform or a marketplace.
Yeah, right, exactly right. It's a double-sided marketplace.
Yeah.
So running in the background for about 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And just because of the amount of traction, we've now moved on to an app.
Great. And what's the business model? So how do you guys make money?
Sure. So for the average layman, it's free. It's not a SAP model. I think that was really important because the world's expensive right now. Everyone's trying to keep lights on and food on the table and pay their mortgages. And I think one of the other things that's happening as well in the world is a complete lack of accountability. So we're seeing lots of, whether it's SEO, SEM, or any other kind of paid advertising, there's this narrative that's happening right now where there's these management entities that are using dialogues like, well, we had good intention and we tried. And I'd like to see someone walk into a restaurant and the chef say, well, I tried to make your food. I'm so sorry I didn't. And someone agreed to pay for trying to make someone's food. Yet somehow in the marketing arena, that's flying. And so in this case here, whether it's your average Joe Blow that literally has no skill set, you can now walk into a cafe and literally get paid to drink coffee. And you're still facilitating the business with elevating and being seen. And we are in such a saturated market space. This little coffee shop doesn't need to do a campaign to 300,000 people who are just bypassers who don't care about, the average coffee shop in Potts Point or Broadmeadows or wherever it is, right? They just need 20 or 30 people to actually see that amplification. And, from our perspective, we get a commission.
Yep.
And it is only from business that's actualized.
Got it. And how did you start out? Take us right back.
Yep. Okay. So my background is in events and hospitality. So I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I was named Hong Kong's youngest director when I was 16 years of age. And that was working with a lot of youth and taking them off the street. I worked with the Youth Arts Festival. I put programs together that would go through theatres like the Shushan Theatre in Hong Kong. fast forward, I came out to Australia. I tried university a few times. I would go back eventually, but much sort of later on. But initially, it just didn't serve me. I'd literally been working since I was 14. I'd gone to Kathmandu and worked in orphanages, and I was just a get shit done type of girl, not a person that just wanted to sit there and have some lecturer talk to me about stuff that I felt like they hadn't even experienced at all. And I was just asking too many questions, and they were like, "This is a lecture. You can't ask questions. You need to sit here." I would just, in my head, go, "I could be making money right now."
Yeah.
So I just wasn't born. I was too entrepreneurial. I wasn't born to just sit and do nothing. So I went into the hotel industry initially, and basically worked from the ground up. I drove a lot of people crazy because, again, if there was an area that was very proactive. So it didn't matter whether it was housekeeping or back of house or logistics. If there was a vacancy or someone that hadn't turned up, I put my hand up to do it. And I think, just by way of example, we are in an arena where, say, it's the laziest generation I've
Mm.
ever seen. If you want to get ahead, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. There's that saying, don't get upset from the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do. And I literally worked my way into a general management role. And I think a lot of people, I don't think anyone's not indispensable. I think that's just garbage. However, when you can do front of house and you can do hospitality and you have an understanding of an operational role, and you cannot do a sales role without doing an operational role. You need to understand the remit and merit that goes behind that. So if you have an appreciation for housekeeping and what it actually takes to turn over a bed and the labor that goes behind that, because you can't sit there and criticize, well, it should only take you 20 minutes. Well, have you changed a bed? Do you understand what that looks like? Have you walked into a room where 4 people have been in it and actually had a party or vomited? Because until you've been in that position and had to do it, you don't have a right to actually have any kind of dialogue around that. And they're saying in an event space, when a conference room that has a cabaret style for 80 people now has to be turned over into a theater style for 200, have you actually had to clear the tables, pack that down, reset it, vacuum and everything else that's attached to that? So I think when you've done all those things, including understanding ordering and wastage and par levels, and did you miss the order date? Have you had to negotiate with wholesale? Do you even understand wine and the difference and dates and what happens when certain foods aren't available? So all of those kinds of things, first of all, those can't be taught in university. I don't care what anybody says. You have to experience it, and you have to screw up, and you will screw up lots. And that's okay as long as you're learning from it. And along the way, understanding things like in restaurants and hospitality, cost of goods, and what happens when your percentages sit at 38%. And now you haven't made a profit because you've eaten into them all because some nuff has over ordered and done wastage or thrown stuff out. So all those things actually come from ridiculous amounts of experience. Or when you put 4 people on to set up a buffet at 6 a.m. instead of going, well, there's no one on front of house. Like, you only need one person in front of house. There's no one actually doing anything because it's dead. And you can use them to facilitate setting up to save costs. Again, that comes from experience. And if you're responsible and you treat someone's business as if it was your bottom line, which again, a lot of people don't because they have no integrity and they don't care because it doesn't affect their bottom line, all those things will facilitate you when you come to have your own business. So those were huge things in stepping stones for when I would, and it's I'll say an integrity thing. It's a moral compass thing.
Mm.
You actually can't, I mean, I say you can't teach it. You can if you have great leaders, but you have to actually absorb. You have to be willing to learn.
Mm.
There are some things where I want to say those things can't be manufactured. You actually have to intrinsically want to learn those things, or go, I just choose to be a soldier, which is fine.
Mm.
And you're just following a task list. But those things can't be taught unless you're bred that way.
Yep. So run us through all the businesses.
So I went through the restaurant industry. So by way of example, the starting one was Ramada that actually got acquired by Mirvac that would be acquired by Core. So I went through 3 acquisitions, and Mirvac was actually, for those that don't know, was hospitality and construction. So there's sort of two sides to that, and then a Core which still exists. Mirvac no longer does hotels at all. Then went into a larger sort of, a Core has a number of different faces within the hotel group. And then from there went into a global catering entity, which would be Delaware North, which was all around stadiums and large tenders, which I became the director of sales, marketing, and events for. The number one learning out of all of that, so the biggest one there before, I say own entities came in, was people. And I know we briefly
Ranted about that. Yep.
I would say hire the person, not the resume.
Yep.
As a number one, you need to protect culture like it's your bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hire values first, skills second. People can be professional interviewers. Some are amazing because that's all they've done. They've interviewed for months, so they learn the questions. They really understand how to garner the response. It's really easy to be good when everything's good.
I heard the other day, real life story where a guy went for an interview. It was a Zoom interview. He got the job, and then when the person turned up, it wasn't the person that was on the interview because that was a deep fake of someone.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that's just how bad some people. Just don't know where they think they could do that. It's ridiculous.
I want to say that nothing surprises me anymore. I mean, in this day and age, there's lots of stories that come out. Like, I think now, a lot of individuals that are coming into whether contract or employee roles feel like they have the upper hand. And I say feel like they have the upper hand. I mean, as a parent, I actually still will go back to its enabled behavior. Comes down to what you're willing to tolerate. And I'll share historically some stories that happened where absolutely employees push the barometer. I'd like play in that space. I think, first of all, monkey see, monkey do. There is nothing then or now I will ask of my employees, team, contractors that I'm not willing to do myself. And I shared this on another podcast as well. I will 100% do 3 times what I will ever ask of any of them. But if I ask you to do something, and you won't do it, then my organization is not going to be a place that I'm going to entertain having you. And I know in another podcast, one of the questions I was asked was, well, but it's not, your business is not my business. Why should I? And I'm like, it's not even a matter of should. You want me to be fluid and flexible and give you all the space. And yet you want to be succession trained, and you want me to elevate you and give you all this mentorship and do all these things for you. Yet when I ask you to do something for me, you want to push back or give me attitude or tell me all the reasons, like I shouldn't have to stay an hour later. And if I do, I deserve blah, blah, blah. And this is no different to conversations we will have with our children, right?
Yeah.
You can give them 10 things and you'll ask them for one, and all of a sudden there's bite back, right? Yeah, I don't think so. So, and it's like, well, who's the leader? Who's the parent? Who's doing what? And that's where leadership comes in. That's the difference between a leader and a manager, right? And that's where toxic behavior can start to, and that's okay. You don't have to. You can go sit at somebody else's table and you can display that behavior over there in this organization, right? You are going to have things that are uncomfortable. You are going to do things that you may not like, and you are either going to step up and rise to that occasion, or you're not going to be here. Because if you want me to take my time and nurture and help you elevate to be more, then these are the things we expect. And if that's not what you want to do, that's okay. You don't have to do anything, but nor do I, right? And so I think, you have to have your boundaries. And that's in anything, whether you're in a relationship with someone, whether you're in business, whether business partnerships. And if you start to waver, people sense that and they will push and things fall over. So I think you have to act quickly when red flags appear.
Yep.
That's another big one, right? And I think people sense them. They know, and they produce avoidant behavior.
Mhm.
What's too hard?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to push that over there because I've got a Friday night show I want to go to. That's going to aggregate. You're going to have a real problem soon. And then that's going to be insidious within your organization.
Yep. All right. So, yep, keep going through the various companies. Yep.
Yeah. So went through the hospitality industry. So that was great. So Delaware was an awesome organization. Went through that. Really great experience. And I learned a lot around the people management. Would I know we shared briefly, would go into having my own restaurant in the Melbourne CBD area. So that was
Yeah. As I said, a couple of doors down from our web design development company on Elizabeth Street, Block Arcade. When I used to go there all the time, and it was great, particularly Friday nights with the music. It was fantastic.
yeah, so there was quite a few down that strip. And again, really regular crowds, right? So it was literally a 6 a.m. till midnight, 7 days a week. And when you take on a business that has changed hands as well, right? So there's a period of time you're also, you tend to sometimes you'll take on some of the existing staff. A lot of the time that doesn't always stay. So there's a transition period. There's menu changes, there's chef changes. And Melbourne 2002, 2000, to that period to 2005. So we were under an umbrella of a particular group at that time. So yes, we had ownership, we had shares,
Mhm.
but we were responsible for the running of the restaurant and everything that sort of came hand in hand with it. And it was quite competitive. So because we were still competing with, they also had other restaurants in that sort of laneway. And so it was a little bit of fun because you had your X reads and your Z reads. And when you're bringing on staff as well, back then there was still cash was king.
Mm.
So, even now with not cash is king, if someone wants to steal, they will find a way. And back then you had to be, people were really clever with how they got away with doing things with sleight of hand. So when you were hiring staff, and especially back then, a lot of backpackers and tourists and things like that were coming through, trust. You can't buy trust, right? I mean, you want to buy trust, right? Marketing and all the other things you do, but you really can't buy. So if you find someone that you can bring into your organization that you trust and they're loyal, you want to do whatever you can to keep them. Now, a really interesting thing, and I'm sort of going to sway back and forth between, crowds now and the businesses and hospitality, and the reason I'm going to do that is hospitality is the industry right now that is completely falling over. It has never been worse. We're hearing everywhere, right, that the hospitality industry, the restaurant industry, the cafe industry, businesses are collapsing everywhere. And when you're on social media or just media in general, there's a lot of public scrutiny about what they should be doing, how they could be doing it better. I can't believe that the prices are what they are. So I want to just layer up as someone who's been in that industry for forever on just a little bit of context and just reflect back. And I'll go into a couple different things, but I just want to give a little bit of insight. In 2002 to 2005, a coffee was $2.50. A coffee now is like $9. An average meal back then was $8 to $12. That's what a coffee costs now. Yeah, soy milk or your, almond mocha latte, blah, 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 whatever on it. I mean, that's what you're paying for. Your meal then was what a coffee costs now. You know, an actual meal now, an average like main meal, sits at about $40. That's your wage cost for a staff member now per hour, right? Back then, an average casual wage was ranging between $11 to $13. Okay, so I just want to give some perspective for all the judgy people who decide to be keyboard warriors who have an opinion. And cost of goods. Okay, so cost of goods should sit in order to be profitable at about your 28 to 32%, roughly. Okay. So again, we had a 60-seater, thereabouts. Yes, bar stools, blah, 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 and all that jazz, but just roughly. Okay. So if you average, and again, and it's going to flick between 2002, like that sort of era, to 2025, all right, 2002 to 20, approximately, to give context on where and what's happened. So let's say you go a chef, a cook, two sort of, I say kitchen hands, they're about and full front of house, right, between your baristas and all that jazz. So wages and bills, 2002, roughly, let's go 11 to 12,500. Okay. Cost of goods still, I'm going to actually go a little bit higher just for those who aren't, let's say, running. So 30 to 35%. Okay. Let's just sit there and just pretend they're sitting higher. Rent back then, let's go between $3,000 to $4,000 a week. Okay. Approximately. And your required turnover would have been about $32,000 per week. So again, I think I was saying earlier on about, let's say, $4,500 per day. Okay. To be profitable. Okay. 2025. And this is funny, who were doing the exercise earlier. So wages and bills, about $25,000. Okay. Now your cost of goods is still the same. That hasn't changed. However, your wholesale price for things like flour or coffee has increased by 70 to 120%. Right? So now you've got rent, which is sitting more like at $7,000 to $8,000, and your required turnover is like $8,000 to $10,000 a day.
Wow.
Notwithstanding 2002 to 2005, the city was bustling. Human atmosphere, and people were coming into the city early, start the day early. So you were packed by 7 a.m. People were grabbing their coffees, right? And you were getting breakfast before your day started, and then they were down for lunch. So you just had this huge insertion for lunch. And then, like you said, on the Friday, even evening for dinner, like you finish, even, it was always packed. It's dead. So if you have to aggregate, so a lot of restaurants aren't even open, right? So in order, rent's still what it is. If you take Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you have to then aggregate what they have to do in turnover into this tiny, like, how? Like, they're fighting for survival, right? And then just to be seen in a saturated market space and trying to do things with Uber and takeout and whatever, while there are these other rates and everything there. Meanwhile, people are going, I can't believe this restaurant shut. Oh, good. So, and what do you do to help them stay open?
Yep.
It's impossible. The cost of everything is so amplified and elevated. How are they supposed to survive? So I just wanted to, throw some actual genuine figures attached to that.
Yeah, that's great. All right, next business.
So had the restaurant sold, and I know I won't go into too much detail, but was part of starting a franchise with my ex-husband. That's still going. I'm no longer married, but that's still happening there. But very successful franchise. So there's over 80 of them, which is Sunchuro. But I won't go into too much detail within that.
Can you say what kind of service or industry it's in?
Yeah, so that's in hospitality too. So it's the chocolate industry.
Yep.
And, I'll go lightly into I was importing Kubacha chocolate as well. So I was also looking after the parent company. So I was importing chocolate from Spain, distributing it. I was working, with every major, again, hotel, creating chocolate truffles, all of that kind of jazz, even Qantas, all of those kinds of things too. So there was a lot of individuals involved in that. And then I moved outside of that, and Event Negotiators was born. Now, Event Negotiators was born because I like looking for the spaces and the gaps. And that initially was born out of a need that I felt, again, just out of my experience from the hospitality industry, from procurement and auditing. And what was apparent at the time is a lot of corporations, from banking to major corporations that had multiple branches, were not paying any attention to any level of auditing or buying power in the event space. So they were heavily reliant on EAs to drive and book events. CapExes were set, distributions of budgets were given to these departments, and they were just spending their budgets with no, again, care factor on how that revenue was used. And some of that money was in the millions. And you would have let's say, different socioeconomic areas. So by way of example, with the conference, you have something called a day delegate package. Okay, so arrival tea and coffee, morning tea, lunch, afternoon tea. And you will have lots of vendors in different areas. So I'll just take a really basic one like audio visual. And you could be booking for a particular bank, in a particular branch, a day delegate package in Potts Point, and the same exact for 50 people, and the exact same one in Double Bay. And the difference would be $250 a head over there, but 75, exact same catering. And somehow there is this huge discrepancy in figures. And I'm like, I wonder if the tuna that they serve you here has got like gold pieces in it. And that's why and no one was paying attention. And so there was this huge revenue leakage. So in we walked and basically disrupted this space with saying, there's buying power when you do it with purchasing flour. And you work with a group for stationery at the time. It was WC Penfold, and office work, things like that. Why isn't anyone doing it with events in hospitality? And so again, we had huge groups that we were working with. I had teams of people that were facilitating and managing that. And I think as well, one of the things when you're managing and working with employees, is you start to move into remits of like the tax structure started to change significantly. And yes, you got things like PAYG tax. And actually, what I will talk about later with crowds now is the whole big incident that happened with Uber and implications that we're looking at as well as we're expanding, because that's set a nice big precedent as well for anyone, the delineation between what is a contractor and what is full-time, and some of the things that are happening there for anyone who's in that space, because we also fall into a double-sided market space, some of those things just to look out for. But a lot of people as well that are in startups or in small to medium enterprises that start to go, okay, I've got to, put this away, all of a sudden get hit with these. First of all, the first thing they get hit with is forward tax that they didn't think about. So they do that first year and they go, oh, I made $200,000. And the government goes, yes, you did. And guess what? We think you're going to make in year 2. And they go, what just happened? I'm like, who's your accountant?
Yeah.
So that's, for those that are watching this for the first time that have never heard of that, if you're profitable in your first year, and I'll just use a really easy figure, let's say you're just profitable by 10,000, the government goes, oh, you made 10,000 in your first year, we're going to assume you can make that and then some in your second year. So we're going to tax you in your first year based on the fact that you're going to be able to make that and this in your second year.
Yep.
If you do not put that money aside, you will collapse your business in your first year. We have seen it happen to lots of businesses because they just don't do that. And then again, if you've already got employees in your first year, you will hurt yourself. And I think I shared with you a statistic. 500,000 businesses opened in Australia last year and 450,000 of them shut. For a number of reasons, marketing was a big one, but complete lack of business acumen was also a big one. They were just like, we didn't know. And unfortunately, ignorance is not bliss. Whilst the ATO government will be like, oh, didn't you? Okay, you can have past monopoly go on your way. No one cares, right? So that's not gonna fly. So I will say that that's a huge one as you're expanding your business. And the other part as well is I've never used advertising or marketing per se. My people, my reputation, they're my walking billboards. So I think as we brought business in and we grew from that, the procurement and auditing, because those businesses became advocates for our brand. And I think people forget visibility is oxygen for your brand. So you need to know you exist. I say you need to know. People need to know you exist. That's how you get business. And you are on shoestring budgets initially. And people do all these really fancy P&L things. And I'm like, that's great. When you start, most of that stuff, it's not real. It doesn't happen the way you think it does. I think you need to amplify your voice early and consistently, right? If you can't get the people who are using your service to become really the voice of your brand. I think a lot of fast growing businesses get caught up in the chaos of scaling and operations and hiring and cash. They forget that I don't care if you've got 2 or 3 clients, and that's it. You need them to advocate for your brand. It's that recurring, say becoming the ambassadors almost that facilitates growth. Um, don't worry about, oh, and I'm going to go to Sydney next and Adelaide, and you're going to get caught up in the marketing of essentially rubbish. You're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Any other businesses between Events Negotiator and Crowds Now?
Yeah, so event negotiators went into basically large scale events. So we then the large scale events led into major stadium events. Again, again, it's that crossover back to when I was doing work with Delaware North. Again, as well, it's leveraging who you know, right? I know there's this, oh, your network is your net worth, not always, but I will really say as well, it is leveraging your contacts. It's also doing for people. It's got to be mutually beneficial. I think we're also in an arena where people take. I think how you serve is as valuable as what you serve. And I know there's a sort of a question around sort of the books you read. Will Gradera,
Yeah, it's a great book.
Hospitality. Yeah, he's phenomenal. And so is Cult Status, Tim Diven, also great. And I think, it's really important that you're nurturing people, your relationships, because you never know when you're going to need them. So when we did these large scale events, we brought out Richard Branson, Tim Ferriss, Susan Sarandon, Goldie Hawn. So we were constantly nurturing our networks, our databases. What could we give? Exceptional levels of service, everything that Will Tool talks about. And that would facilitate. And I became, say, obsessed with conversion and lead points. And I didn't want to become reliant on other people to fill my events. And even sort of cross-referencing that back into the restaurant industry, that those points where people were taking times where they were more relaxed and having lull periods. I was really about, solving a problem between the 3 to 5 PM point. How can I bring in extra revenue? How can I fill those dead points? And so we were bringing in an extra $1,500 at that point. So for me, I became obsessed with how to fill a venue, how to get bums on seats. When it became major events, for me, everything had to be measurable. If I couldn't, I had a PhD in results. I became totally obsessed with, if it isn't measurable, it doesn't exist. If I cannot qualify, otherwise it's that sentiment of people are just looking at stuff. It's like window shopping. It's just attention. There's no actual intention to convert. There's no conversion on paper. So you can tell me that 2 million people have come to the website. That's great. I'm sure Apple would be really great and happy too if they just knew that 3 million people were standing in their store and no one bought anything. It's nothing, right? So people get all caught up in this traffic dialogue. They don't buy anything because I'd rather 20 people just came and actually bought than the rubbish of how much traffic. I don't care, right? And that's like billboards where it's like, oh, 3 million people saw it. So who cares, right? So I want the actual impact, the conversion point. So that became something that I became fanatical about and was really breaking down repeatedly. What's the color palette? Where's the opt-in boxes? Where's the conversion points happening? How are they happening? Where's the narrative? Where are the inflections? Where are the points? And I was doing that for all of my events until corporations that I was working with started asking, and that shot off to another entity in digital media where I started building websites, and I became really focused on CRMs, LMSs, ERPs, and really built things around that. And that would actually be a saving grace because COVID hit, and overnight, my entire event business shut down, and everyone I had working for me, and whether they were a contractor or full-time or not, we didn't have a space for them, right? We had nothing we could do with them. However, I was able to keep my digital media business alive, and the contractors that were there, and we were able to continue bringing revenue in and doing work with that. And because of the amount of work I did with that, I was looking at what I had done with the events industry and what I had done with the digital media business, and even historically with how I was able to do work even in hospitality. And I went, okay, I know how to fill venues. I've been doing it for years. I was taking groups over to, even with the events, over to um, London's West End. And was able to fill residencies in spaces where I'd had 3 months to do it. And I knew my craft. So how could I take what I knew and do something to allow communities to thrive? And that's what Crowds Now was born out of. Really.
What year was that you started Crowds Now?
So we are 2025. So I'd say the concept was born, I say in my head, sort of in 2021, sort of the COVID sort of period. And then really I was running it out of event negotiators initially because I wanted to make sure it had legs. So we were sort of building this sort of crowds on demand sort of concept. And actually we were doing a lot of work initially with extras, right, in the sort of film industry first. And then into 2022, 23, that's where Crowds Now really ramped up. A lot of it was manual. We have over 500,000 people on our databases.
Wow.
I don't name the company. So one of the biggest things about Crowds Now is we're invisible. Oh, by way of example, if you had 3 restaurants in a row and one was busy and 2 were dead, optically, you look at the one that's busy and you go, oh, it's got great vibe, great human atmosphere. It's already got the social safety, because that's the reason we don't go into the one that's dead. It's like, well, there's no one in there. So that one's probably the one I'm likely to go to, whether that's in Australia or France or South America. That's what we just do, because we just go, that one looks like it's happening, so I'm going to go there. But the reality is the 2 that are dead, that could have a Michelin star chef in it. And you have no idea unless someone is literally gone, that's got a Michelin star chef in it in your inner circle, right? If you don't know and you're visiting a country, you're just going to go into the one that's busy because you're going to make whatever assumption that tells you there must be a reason that that's busy. But if I said to you the reason that's busy is because we put 50 people in there, now we don't say that, but we've done hundreds of things and we know people are sheep because COVID told us that, right? So these are what, now I say, this is not meant to be a long-term activity. This is helping SME businesses be seen, right? Because they don't have tens of thousands of dollars. It's not meant to be something that stops people from doing SEO or SME or any other type of advertising thing. There are enterprise businesses that do those types of advertising campaigns for different reasons. But when you're a startup or you're trying to do some kind of product launch or you are trying to be seen, what you need is, first of all, you don't have the funds. That's number one. You're just trying to get visibility in an environment that is highly saturated. That's number one. So from a business perspective, you just want to yield low spend to get some visibility. Your influencers are not your buying market. So you want your buying market. And your everyday people are looking for ways to keep lights on and food on the table. So this is facilitating them to do that. And it's basically allowing communities to thrive.
And so back in 2022, I was like to ask you context, and obviously we can do the numbers going back when you started your first business, but roughly how old were you then in 22, 3 years ago when you started Crowds Now?
So I'm 46 now. So
yeah, so 43.
Yeah.
Yep. Great. And how many full-time equivalents did you start with and where are you at now?
Sure. So a number of different businesses. So obviously restaurants, we had that was always, I would say, changing. So you would have your chef, your back of house. So you have your cooks, your larder, and then you would have your wait staff. So depending on time of day, you could have say full time and you'd have part time, and then your casual. So I want to say, let's say on rotation of about 8, approximately thereabouts. Hotels, quite significantly different. Event negotiators, we would have had about 6.
Yep.
And I didn't, I hadn't actually touched on this business at all. Before Event Negotiators, I had Bridal Suite, which was a wedding business. So there were probably about 6 to 8 there as well, but I sold that prior to Event Negotiators.
Great.
I won't go into too much detail about it, but there's a franchisor business there as well that was in that. There's probably, I want to say, roughly about 20.
Mhm.
And there's also a digital media business. So with that, there's web designers, web developers, SEO, SEM. So there probably sits about 6. And crowds now, okay? So at the moment, most of those sit in a contractor space. However, there will be, that's already on the build for 2026. So every country will have its own independent GM, and then also CFO, COO, CMO, CTO. So those are already
Yep.
in the build for 2020.
In the planning. That's great. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
So I think I'd probably be fast forwarding a little bit. I was actually headhunted by a company at the time. So I probably wasn't running my own business per se, but I was headhunted by Delaware North as their director of event sales and marketing for Australia. So I was reporting into the international director. So Delaware North, just for context, looks after all the stadiums and like a multitude of venues across Australia. So I had thousands of people underneath me at that point.
Wow.
That was a very different jump, very different exercise. So you're working a lot on a business as opposed to directly in the business. And the jump of lots of different personalities, lots of really understanding what it actually takes to manage everything from, we were working with zoos, Victoria, the botanical gardens, your stadiums, and what it means to keep those going, both the relationships, because we had a lot with government, as well as filling each of those, the exercises it would actually take to maintain the level of traffic. I think that was a huge turning point in trajectory. Lots of personalities from your front line all the way up to the top. I don't think anyone teaches you how to manage people.
No.
Um,
It's really, even corporates, I mean, they more so than small businesses, but especially small businesses don't really invest in good management training. They just throw them in the deep end and say, there you go, there's some people to manage, promote this.
100%. And I think even in a huge organization, it takes less than a handful of people to totally destabilize an entire business. And I thought, we may have even previously touched on this in earlier conversations. And I don't know if Australia is more guilty of this than other arenas, but it's this diffusion of responsibility, right? So when you do have someone that's toxic, we tend to promote them because it's just a our area. So we just
Yep.
move them and make them someone else's problem.
Yeah.
And you'll find, I certainly found it when I was there, that people were getting moved around like chess pieces, but just they were moving pawns, right? Essentially. And I always say as well, the really interesting thing about managers and leaders is you can walk into even a telemarketing place. Forget who and I say managers are appointed, leaders are chosen. So if you want to know who the leader is, look who everybody is going to ask questions for. That's actually the person who should be in charge, not the person that from the top has selected, because they don't even know. They've just selected a resume. All right. So I think that was one key point, one key time where I felt I had truly succeeded, because the jump was, I want to say, so significant. And even when I was headhunted for that role, I remember at the time going, I feel like this is a significant jump from where I was. And it wasn't that I didn't have the belief in myself that I could do the role. It was more people driven. It was I felt like I was running an adult daycare facility. It was the amount of people. I was almost bottlenecking between being able to do the job I was engaged to do and the amount of people that were coming to me for superfluous rubbish, and managing and actually having to put barometers around how I was going to mandate that. And that was a learning in itself, because I guess you almost have to protect the culture of the business.
Mm.
And if you allow like insidious stuff, because they will try, and I say use the adult daycare facility because if you allow the skipping of hierarchy and the jumping and the people to, try and get in there with you, and they will, try and do that. They'll see if they can, I say, befriend you, right,
Mm.
for the wrong reasons to leverage. That you can also create a destabilizing arena. And I wanna say twofold. Having, Delaware gave me the insight into all the arenas. I would actually move from that role and work and coming out of that with event negotiators, which was my business, and engage a contract, which was probably the next really huge career success for me personally, where I would bring individuals like Richard Branson and Tim Ferriss and almost was nearly 35 speakers into the country. Because of that insight that I would have with Delaware and working with all the arenas and the global catering side and really having the understanding of what it took to manage at that great pause, the being able to put together an event in under 5 months with, over 25,000 people attending across 2 days, there's no way I would have been able to do that without this side first. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions for people who put together events is they go, "Oh, I'm just gonna bring out a notable person, and then everybody will just come."
Mm.
And no, that doesn't I don't care what it is, and I think people look at even entities, whether it's like your Live Nation or your Ticketek or your Ticketmaster, and make this assumption that it must just be so easy for them. They just bring out these people, and people just turn up. And they totally miss the gravity of work that sits behind the filling of an event, the promotion, the volume of money that they put at risk to actually have to do that. And they look at businesses, whether they're restaurants, whether they're a retail product that's launched, whether they're a brewery, right? And everything that it takes to actually put a business together, and they see the wins and they just assume that because they have other wins behind them, that must have just like, I mean, it's easy. They've got a database and they've got people, and they have no idea about the journey that it took to get there.
Yeah. What does success look like to you?
Oh, I think so there's a couple different things. I think, from a personal perspective, balancing as a single mom with 2 young girls, it's I'm like, don't like necessarily using the word balance because I feel like balance means giving nothing to anything, just by definition of the word. But I do think it's the being able to give 100% of myself to the business when I need to, 100% of myself to my children when I need to. Um, I think it's been me and them since they've essentially been 1 and 2. So they, I'm very uh, cognizant of what I call time block allocations. So success for me is being able to allocate those time blocks where I categorically give myself to the girls and they understand that, notwithstanding business emergencies, so that they have their mum for those timeframes and I can be the mum I need to be for them. And being able to dedicate myself to my business, I say 80 to 100% of the time when I'm on for that. I never ask anything of my team that I'm not prepared to do myself. I'm all about succession planning. That being said, I'm a taskmaster, so my team are acutely aware of the fact that if I brought you into my team and I'm creating a segue or a pathway for what I want for them, I don't suffer fools. So, yes, I absolutely will facilitate and build out. Success for me is always there's no finish line.
Yeah.
I'm always just about leveling up. I'm a doer. I'm not interested in 40 meetings. I empower my team to be very solutions focused. I think I used earlier on, I have a PhD in results. I don't want them coming to me every 30 seconds to find a resolve. I want them to have that answer. I want them to be out of the box. The ones that are not doers don't last very long here, and it's purely because I do empower them to have that. I in another discussion, yes, I have the allowance for mental health. I'm very cognizant of it, but not where it's being abused. Otherwise, take a mental health year.
Mm.
I just I want to thrive.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
It's not about one-off campaigns. It's about continuity and consistency. It's not just about having fast growth. It's about long-lasting growth. I think people think it's about doing things ad hoc or one off. Like anything, you have to show up consistently. I think even if you take the metaphor for going to the gym, right? If you do that once every 2 to 3 months, you're not going to see a result. You have to have that continuity. You have to do it consistently, and you're not going to see the result straight away either. You'll see it in 6 months or 12 months. I think we're in that arena now where people want instant gratification. And then they get upset when they see someone else 12 months later and they're like, how did you do that? Well, they showed up every single day.
Mm.
So I think you have to be in it for that long lasting growth.
And how did you fund your businesses? Investors, some bank debt along the way?
No, so I was uh, grassroots. Everything has been for myself. I think that's the other part. I'm not saying, there's not a time and a place for investors. Krasmau definitely, has had lots of opportunity, and will probably look at that future state. But all my other businesses have been self-funded. I think that, again, that sentiment of, say digging deep. If you're not willing to invest in you, like truly, if you wouldn't back yourself,
Mm.
why would anybody else? And I think, again, it's that people go outside, almost desperation, begging for you do whatever it takes. They're not willing to do whatever it takes, but want somebody else to do whatever it takes to, back them. And I'm going to just reference, because it's been in the news a lot, Canva. You know, Mel had 100 no's anyway to investment, and she could have just gone, "Oh, no one believes in me, so I might as well pack it in." She was still backing herself and doing the work the whole way through before, and even with what she did with her employees, which has been amazing, right? But she believed in herself. She kept going the whole way through in spite of Netflix, 1,000 no's, right? Their stories. And if you follow the stories of anyone who has truly had a belief in something that is going to change the trajectory, and a no is not a reason to stop. They keep going because they have, a deep-seated belief in what they're doing.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry, what you're doing now?
100%. I'd do it even if I had. I mean, I started with zero anyway. I think, and when I taught at the event management college, one of the things I used to say to them, especially with events or hospitality, is it's a brutal industry. You have to be willing to do it if you weren't getting paid. And if you don't have that, and that it comes from, the sentiment, the highest order of service is to serve others. So if you are not driving from a pure place of wanting to serve others, do not be in this industry, because it is not a glamorous industry. You are truly there for other people. And if you don't come from that customer service space, leave.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Yeah, I say getting late, like bums on seats, right? Actually driving traffic. And I think all businesses look to drive traffic, but in a hospitality driven industry where you have a bricks and mortar, in the digital space, you're online. And yes, that's difficult, but you are not actually bound by uh, uh, rent, mortgage, right? There's different responsibilities. So when you actually have a restaurant, or if you're in the franchising space, so you actually have that bricks and mortar, so the electricity, the gas, the water, the people, right? All of those responsibilities. It's a different type of pressure, in its entirety, and that's only going to your revenue's only generated by people coming in and spending. So the pressure to deliver, and I'm not saying, it's no, say people have products, but again, your bricks and mortar spaces have a whole additional pressure load to them, because they've got commercial leasing, and everything else that actually comes with that. And if they don't have the people that come in, and I'm not saying there's not other little things. So now we've got your Uber Eats, your delivery services, or things outside the box. And absolutely think about things outside the box. But the actual pressure load to fulfill a whole other expense line does not exist in some other industries. So yes, I think and those times when you are trying to make bank, yeah, it's a whole other extreme pressure.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Understanding. So when I think I became obsessed with CRMs and understanding lead generation and that the marketing arena, and what was truly, driving traffic, what was going to make people part with money. Of really understanding the psyche, the psyche that behind that, um, which is genuinely connecting with people. Um, no one likes to be sold to. And I think when I really got to a place where I understood the relationship build and the connection, um, and what that dialogue intrinsically looked like, and if you can nurture the people that are already engaging with your business and build from there, they actually become your raving fan and they do the work for you. And it is that domino effect. And I think once I got to a place where I truly understood that, that changed the narrative and that pipeline for me.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
People.
Oh, don't start me on that one.
Yeah, because, I I think I'm a
But if you
control
sorry, but if you get it right, if you recruit well and get A players, then it's
100%. Yeah. I mean, do you, I'm saying again, you protect culture like it's your bottom line, but it only takes one. And, you know, I'm say it's really hard. Like recruiting, first of all, people can become professional interviewers. They just are, right? And I don't care if you've got a soft degree, you can interview someone that can appear amazing. Um, and I always make the juxtaposition to dating because you can be with someone in the first 3 months, it's all right, and then you will have something go wrong. And it is not until something, bless you, it is not until um, you're in a scenario where something falls over and you watch someone in a situation and you're like, ah, there you are, right? That you go, well, this has been a fun 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. Because even if something small goes wrong, they might still be on their best behavior. They might still be waiting because they want something. They're looking to pass their probation period. If it's 6 months, you might not get the full side of their glory, right? When something truly goes wrong, that's when you see who someone is. And even then, it's not how they handle themselves in the moment something goes wrong. It's the recovery side of something goes wrong. It's how long are they going to stay in a strop? How long are they going to take to drag their feet? How painful are they going to be? How toxic are they going to be to the rest of the team? And how many times is that moment going to repeat itself before you have to make a call to go, I now have to manage this person out of my business because as much as I'd be like, you just want to go out, just like leave. You can't do that because there's protocol and procedure. And now you've wasted a lot of time nurturing an individual or individuals that are causing dissent in your business. So yes,
Mm.
people.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite Peter Drucker quotes: "Culture eats strategy for breakfast."
Yeah.
So totally agree. What do you love most about growing a small business?
Oh, just, I think when, again, so the other side of that is when great people come together for a united vision. And if they treat your business, when I say your business, if they're actually invested in the business and they treat it as if it's their own, um, they become family. And so because of that, it's that sentiment, together we rise. So they actually, it's not about 9 to 5 or 7 till 10. The hours don't even matter. It's a pleasure for them. They love it. The culture is so embodied in who they are that you are all leveling up together. And it's something that's so intrinsically special that as the business is growing, it's a pleasure for them to be there. It's a pleasure for you to have them there. Nothing is too much. And I say that as when you're leading a business like that, a lot of that drives from appreciation and credit and gratitude. So when people feel truly recognized, you know, people think it's all the big things. It's like oh my God, you're and it's actually all the little things every day. People want to be noticed. So, and thanked,
Mm.
right? Um, thank you for coming in on time. And I know people are like, well, they came in on time. They should just, I know it sounds inconsequential, but all the little things where we take things for granted, when people feel recognized and notable, they will, if you think of all the times we're appreciated, we go above and beyond because we feel seen. And when people feel seen, or when they send an email and they feel responded to, or a text message and they feel responded to, and it takes away that I don't feel invisible. They want more of that.
Yeah.
So they do more. So I think they're the beautiful things that, because big companies, all of that gets lost. And in small businesses, there's more visibility.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
I was quite controlling at the beginning. I didn't even realize I was disempowering a lot of my team in the early stages because I had this mindset, it'll just be faster if I do it.
Mm.
And so I think I think often when you're in the initial stages, you can take for granted how much you can actually learn by just listening to your team.
Yep.
So it was a very humbling moment for me where my team was going, we get that you can do it faster. We're not learning anything. Okay, keep doing it for us, right?
And there's only one of you.
Correct. And it was also bottlenecking growth,
Yep.
right? So there was a part of me where I was like, I know they're capable, but they're taking so long, right? And so I had to actually sit back and let them do it because they would catch up to my speed. They needed the repetition and to do it a few times. And I needed to sit there and, walk out and just let them, right? Take their time doing it. And eventually they would be there. So that was, definitely it.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Consistency. I think that a lot of the times, some of the small businesses I talk to are like, "Well, I did it 4 times."
Mm.
I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Sure. So ask a swimmer to do like 4 laps and then see if they're ready for the Olympics." Like, we know that it takes 10,000 hours to be a guru at something, or they'll even say, "But I did it 50 times." I've done things like 3,000 times, right? Steve Bartlett talks about outfail your competition. To outfail your competition, who probably started 5 years ago, right? Who's now got 50,000 fails to you. You have to be willing to do 7 a.m. till midnight for the next 5 years and outfail to reach that. Keep going and then add 20 more. So I think there's, you have to be willing to do more.
Are you a small business owner who is ready to take your professional growth to the next level? Sign up to the Grow a Small Business Weekly newsletter. This is your go-to email every Friday and will take about 2 minutes to read. Join the Grow a Small Business community who, like you, are investing in their professional development. Each week, we curate valuable resources, whether it's expert advice, books, podcasts, industry insights, or actionable strategies. We've got you covered. Leave your email at growasmallbusiness.com/weekly. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
So I think one of the things I try and do when I recruit is I try and just have candid conversation. I want to see who they are. So I try not to do interview techniques anymore. I just try to have a conversation, try and make them feel comfortable enough that they would almost overshare. I want to see them. So I feel like I've gotten better at that. And then I will deliberately try and create a scenario that will show me who they are in the worst possible light. So I will deliberately create, whether it's through friends or whatever, something, a phone call, something that's going to go diabolically wrong to try and get, like a rude customer, something that will show me who they are to speed up that process really fast. I will literally push the buttons. I need to see how they'll handle themselves in the scenario, just so we're not wasting each other's time, especially if I feel like the interview was a little bit, I won't say staged, but let's say they're presenting all their shiny, bright colors. And also, I want to be able to lead with learning. So if I feel like they're doing things because maybe they've come from another organization where they've learnt bad habits, I think part of my role, or if they've, in the organization, is to teach. So not just to go, this is a bad habit, stop it, is to actually be able to provide, this is why we do it, this is where it'll benefit, this, and some actual learning sequences attached to that.
What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
We have a no gossip policy, that's to start with. I think that's the most insidious thing that companies can have is, I think it starts from the front. I think a lot of companies allow, I don't care who it's about. I don't even care if you're talking about an ex or something you saw on the way in. So a huge thing that I've always had is to start with, tell me something great that's happened in your morning or in your day. There is no negative dialogue. I think the moment you entertain something, so even if you've had a bad experience with a customer, the dialogue is, what's something you could learn from that? Not, oh my God, they were an absolute bitch. It's so useless. Like, that's not useful dialogue. You've learned nothing from that. So what did we learn? How could we handle it better? And I think if you can extract out all the toxicity, then that also produces a much, I'll say, a better environment going forward.
Hello, audience, how you've handled balance?
So I don't like that word because I don't think it exists. And I say that because the very definition of balance is this. It means you're giving nothing everything, right? And I think you have to make the decision to go, when you're at work, you're 100% in on work. When you have your break, that's your time. So if you want to go out and have breaks, then that's your time to give yourself to your social or whatever it is you want to do. But when you're on work, you're 100% in. If I was out with a friend and the whole time I was out with them going, no, no, I'm here, I'm listening, and I was doing that, well, you're not listening, you're doing something else. So you have to make the call to decide, am I 100% in? Am I 80% in? I don't care how many hours you give to something, but when you give it, you go all in and you do it till that job's done.
And how much professional development have you invested in yourself?
I've been doing it since I was 8 years old. So, I mean, my mum was, there's I grew up, born and raised in Hong Kong. So Roger Hamilton, at the time, my mum was his first lifetime member. My mum, I by the time I was 8 or 9, my mum was reading me Sebastian Bach, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I mean, at least half, if not more, are all, some of them are children's books for my kids, but are all, in that professional development. I think it's huge. I think you constantly have to be learning and working on yourself. I've been around individuals like that my whole life. Yes, there's crossover and narrative when you go, but just keep putting yourself in that space and listening and learning. The moment you think you've got nothing to learn, you've already put your own bar ceiling on yourself.
Totally agree. Henry Ford said, if you stop learning, you're old. Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I'm always looking. I'm a huge fan of the School of Hard Knocks as well. I think, he's brilliant. I was just saying, someone earlier on this morning, someone turned around and went, yeah, but he's so young. And I'm like, and there within lies another stupid comment. You know,
You're as brittle as me.
so I just, yeah, I think, I mean, I think he's brilliant the way his mind works, how he asks his questions. I think, again, have as many mentors as you can. If you find, that exact question, or statement rather, if you're in a room and you're the smartest person in that room, you're in the wrong room. So don't be afraid to ask questions. It doesn't matter if you're in the room and you're asking the dumbest questions in the room, soon you won't be. So just keep asking the questions.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
I don't yet with my current business, but absolutely, I've actually have a list I've started forming as I meet certain individuals and I cross paths. You know, I say yes, manifestation's important, but so is taking action. So if you come across people and you want to start thinking about future state, what that board or advisory board is going to look like, and you think I really like these skill sets with these individuals. This is what they bring. Start writing their names down. Start thinking about how you would approach them in the future. Because yes, there's manifestation, but if you sit there manifesting about something that you're never gonna take action about, then it's never gonna happen.
And you're one of the few we've had on that's exited a business. Any advice for anyone listening, thinking of exiting one day?
Yeah, so do your due diligence. Even with, crowds now, although I haven't exited, I've already earmarked the company that I wanna exit with. I've already spoken to the managing director. Ironically, they were a person who approached us about investing, and I made the joke saying, "I'll see you on the exit," right?
That's
Um,
good. Yeah.
so I think be realistic about what your company valuation is and your work. And like, and also about when you want to leave. I think as well, some people are like, this is my baby.
Mm.
I've never need something to the point your life ceases to exist without it. That's like, it's a business, right? And if you do that, they'll know that and they'll leverage that, right? It needs to be transactional and you need to be realistic about it, or you'll also miss those opportunities because someone else will want to exit from theirs. And it's a means to an end. So you're taking that to hopefully invest or do something else with. So just, be realistic about what you're doing there and what you want it for. If I'll say someone like me who's always like looking to level up or the next opportunity or what you're using it for, you can be totally invested and immersed in the business at the time of the business. But in your mind, have whatever it is for you, your 3, 5, 7, whatever that exit thing is, have that because otherwise it's like driving and never knowing where you're going to go.
Yep. All right, Adriana, one of our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
People. Still gonna go the hardest thing is actually growing the small business, right? I think people get stuck, I think we were saying really on the semantics, on the really dumb stuff. So, and I say that because they start focusing on logos and crazy amounts of money, and then they get really stuck with the semantics of it, like, "Oh, and there's the orange, the right shade," and I'm like, "Oh my god, just create like, you haven't even got anyone buying, like, a product from you yet, and they'll spend, like, 6 to 12 months going back and forth, and we know we've had it with people, and I'm sitting there going, You've taken 12 months to build your logo, and you have no idea what's gonna happen, and you'll do that, and then your website, and then you will do 45 iterations of your website." I'm like, "Oh, I can't wait till you try and actually go to market with something that you've never tested yet," because I'm trying to give you advice that you don't want like, and I'll say to people, if you're going to someone for advice, maybe listen to it, right? Because they've done it before and all that stuff is semantical. And the only part that matters is, can you even get 3 to 5 people that are not, by the way, your friends or family, to buy your product? Because if you can't, then the rest of it is just bleh.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Unreasonable hospitality, hands down,
Great.
Royal
That's
just an
awesome.
amazing book. I love it.
Even for businesses not in hospitality, I highly recommend they read it.
100%. There's so much like amazing stuff to take out of that book.
Any great podcasts, online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Look, I would say, I mean, Diary of CEO. I know some of the narratives changed a lot more recently, but I have, listened to a lot just because it's so diverse.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Look, I would say if you can get across understanding some level of a CRO, um, it doesn't have to be necessarily Infusionsoft or Salesforce. It's some kind, whether it's Constant Contact, Campaign Monitor, Mailchimp, just something so you understand how to. I say it from a data integrity perspective. The amount of people who just go first name, email, and that's it. And I'm like, oh, good. Let me know how many Sarahs you have on your database. There's no data integrity. I think that's really important, and even understanding how to keep data secure.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day 1 of starting out?
Keep going. It's gonna be hard, it's gonna be messy. There are gonna be days where you're gonna wake up and go, "Why the fuck am I even doing this?" Alright? Just keep going. Often when you're in the spin cycle and you feel it's gonna be the worst, it does stop, right? So just keep going.
Thanks so much for your time today, Adriana. I really enjoyed our chat. Started your first business. It was a restaurant in the early 2000s in Melbourne. Then started a chocolate franchise business, then an events negotiation and general events business, onto a digital media business. And then now you've got an app with over 500,000 people on it who get paid as brand ambassadors for businesses, launching this month around the globe soon after. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Troy.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.